There you go. Sorry.
All right, good morning, everyone. Apologies for starting a few minutes late, my fault. We'll start with our 8:30 item. This is October 18th meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. 8:30 administrative approval of marijuana licenses. Now, come join us.
Just quick and easy. Medical, I'm not even gonna sit. Medical, retail, manufacturing, new license up at the tech park. Applications are complete. All the departments have signed off.
Okay, and your recommendation?
Yep, I recommend approval.
All right. No public hearing, right? We're
Just
done.
no hearing.
Right, so it's good.
Just the boss approved.
Yep.
Right? Okay.
Thank you.
Temporary boss.
That's 2 more months.
What's that?
That's
Means we flipped
Randy.
a-
Yeah,
It means we
exactly.
flipped a coin and you lost.
All right, so on to the next one. Public comment. This is a chance for anybody who's interested to let us know what's on your mind. If you're online, just raise your hand. You'll be moved over and then you can have up to 3 minutes to make your comment.
This is Loyola, but there's nobody yet.
Anybody there?
Nope, nobody.
All right. Doesn't look like we have any public comments, so we'll close public comment. Move on to county commissioner updates. I'll note we're back on schedule.
Well, since the last meeting I attended, I believe I went on vacation to Cape Cod and watched whales and had a tremendous experience there. A lot of fun. And have been doing some other work along the way and did some while I was there, unfortunately, but had a few phone calls and stuff and a couple of meetings. But tomorrow there'll be a Floyd Hill kickoff for the construction project. And there'll be some people getting together on Floyd Hill speaking, and I'll be one of the speakers at the tail end of it. And then tomorrow afternoon after that, there's also a panel that it's not a public thing. It's a panel that CPW is holding for a lot of their officers to train some of their people about how to deal with elected officials and local governments. And so I got asked to sit on that panel because of associations with NOCO and stuff like that, and working with CPW there. So those are just a couple of things popping up this week back in the saddle, and that's really all I've got.
I remember seeing emails about the Floyd Hill kickoff. Where is that and at what time?
It's going to be at, well, I want to say 11:30. I received what's it?
12:45 to 1:45.
12:45, 1:45. Thank you, Amy. And it's at the Floyd Hill Open Space Park.
Oh, nice.
And you should feel free to be there. It'd be great for all of us anybody to be there that can.
And is it CDOT that's putting it on?
Yeah, CDOT, we're gonna have the governor and Director Lou and Kurt Kionka and and Margaret Bose and myself and a couple other people, I think, speak.
Just email me.
What's our agenda?
George?
Yeah, thanks. A quick update for you on the opioid settlement committee, calling it the GROC. That's the committee with Gilpin and Jefferson County, where we are deciding how to spend money from the lawsuit against the settlement from the lawsuit against opioid manufacturers. We're starting to make progress around how this money will be prioritized. There are 5 sort of concepts, buckets of efforts that have been identified. And then the next step will be to figure out how much to put on them, release RFPs. This organization, in some cases, will be eligible to respond to those, as well as community partners, nonprofits, for-profits, et cetera. So those top 5 programs, I don't think this is in order of 1 through 5, is funding for co-responder programs. Wanted to highlight that. Funding for harm reduction, funding for recovery community organization development, funding for recovery housing, and funding for acute substance use disorder care. So that's pretty exciting, and we'll kind of an early heads up that we want to pay attention to those RFPs as they come out.
Right. Sure. Great, thanks.
Anything else?
I don't think so. The local coordinating organization that's rolling out universal pre-K is continuing to gain steam. I've been named to their executive board. I'm not sure I'm the right person in the county to be there in the long term. In the short term, I haven't found, that nobody has told me that they'd rather be in that seat. So I'm going to continue to serve there and try to guide that. I've been working with the school district and a lot of other voices to make sure I'm going down there with the right things in my head. Other than that, I think that's about it.
Okay. Last week, I went down to La Junta for the quarterly meeting of SEMTAC. SEMTAC's the State Emergency Medical Trauma Advisory Council that advises CDPHE on all matters EMS, public policy related to EMS, and also other areas of pre-hospital and hospital care, such as certification of emergency rooms. And I had the chance to talk to a variety of SEMTAC members and I guess I would call them high-ranking officials within CDPHE, asking about co-responder programs around the state. And I learned a lot. And then yesterday, there was the quarterly meeting with JCMH, and it was a pretty robust discussion around co-responder programs as well. And I know JCMH is planning on attending our meeting today. I'm not sure whether they're coming at 1. I think they might be coming to both of them at 1, maybe for sure. And anyway, I just learned a little bit more. I know that we have an internal team that's standing up our task force. That's kind of working in parallel as well. But I guess I'll let JCMH speak for themselves at the meeting later today. It sounds like they're very eager to cooperate with us and be part of the solution if that's the way the things head.
So that would become then an additional fourth and fifth resources available to us in addition to the ones we have now. Is that the idea? In addition to what they're already doing?
Yeah, well, what I learned is
I'm just gonna suggest that we hold that till the actual discussion
Okay.
on the
All right,
agenda,
that's fair.
just because then we can.
Fair enough.
continue
I'm
robust
burning time
discussion.
asking the question too.
That's fair.
So that's,
yeah, the staffing issues that they had in the past, I think, are largely behind them. That's the main thing that I learned, at least with respect to co-responder programs.
okay.
I should have given you an update on the Emerge meeting. You guys are familiar with it. But for the public, Emerge is an organization that gets people together in the Evergreen area just to hear periodic updates from the county and others.
Eastern Mount Evans.
Eastern Mount Evans. Like that.
That's the first part of it.
Yep. So and our staff showed up and did a great job. Suzanne Bocha, of course, is in the Sheriff's Department, Office of Emergency Management. She talked about the county's role in fire mitigation. Megan Heiler showed up to introduce herself and talk about how we're improving public engagement. And Carl Shell showed up. He's a regular over there as our road and bridge director, talking about what's going on with the roads. I don't think there was much heard in that meeting that was new. Folks are very curious to see how, road and bridge after the tax passed is gonna do better, what their plan is. And I think that's about it. I guess. Megan, was there anything of note that you had?
No, I was nervous. They were asking a lot of questions. No, they were great. They're engaged. Yeah.
It'd be nice if we could do something to help the formation of other organizations like that, because I think my opinion is that's largely the only one that really operates like that in the entire county. There's a few homeowners associations, but we don't even get invited to their meetings, or at least not normally.
And Solve was one that kind of was Floyd Hill centric, but it's really countywide. And then there's Friends of Clear Creek, which was primarily the kind of the Empire Valley area right there, but they also accept people from other places too. So they're not really like location specific, but I agree that, like, especially where high population centers are like Floyd Hill and then over in that area at the Witter, Bear Creek area, like for East Mount Evans, like I said, same areas and others we've identified, that we get out once in a while, either for our own meetings there, I found previously when they tried to say, well, we'll have our regular BOCC meeting here and we'll have it there and we'll have it there, that got pretty confusing and problematic. But to have special meetings where we go meet with those groups, I think has got a lot of merit. And I've always enjoyed the Emerge meetings as an example.
And I think the thing that's a little bit different about the Emerge meetings is that they're not rallied around some specific issue, like don't put a gravel pit here or
Right.
don't put a ATV park there. They're more just holistic and an opportunity to hear directly from our voters and
Right.
citizens. So yeah, I think it would be great if there's anything that we could do to,
Foment that.
to kind of encourage people.
And schedule our own town halls. I know we had just started
That
doing
might be a
that.
good way of doing it. Like,
Um,
same areas as an obvious other area that's a little unique when it comes to their own needs and issues. I know that was a candidate for them too. Which candidates actually showed up besides yourself?
The candidates that showed up were myself and the person that's also running for this office, as well as the two candidates for Senate District 8, Dylan
Okay.
Roberts and Matt Solomon.
Mhm.
And it was good. I mean, all the candidates spoke well and clearly care about what they're trying to have an opportunity to do. And
Was that St. Mary's one or the?
that was Emerge. There
Oh,
was also the-
at Emerge, that's where, yeah, okay.
And
That's
then
right.
there was a presentation that was, nice and technical about wells and how to keep them running and flowing and,
The kinds of rocks that they're involved in. And
Yeah.
I could see that. All righty, thanks. Right, to you.
Thank you. I'll be brief, but like Amy, I was also out of town. Spent some time down in Fort Lauderdale, got to see my mom down there. That was good. And while I was gone, Maria Ostrom sent you the proposed budget last Thursday. So hopefully you had that and spent your entire weekends reading through that, I'm sure.
I wish I'd been reading it last night instead of watching the Broncos.
Yeah. That probably would have been a better option. I saw the end of that game. So we'll spend pretty much of a good deep dive on that proposed budget at your next meeting on November 1st. If you remember last year, we were resuming it still last year, and we had all the department heads on the screen, but I kind of covered the presentation itself and presenting the budget. But we're gonna have each of the departments here and ask them to give you a brief overview of their budget. Significant challenges they had in building their budget. Any obvious questions that you might see as you look at a line item that might have increased or decreased, and then just what are their focus areas for the coming year. They won't be long presentations, but I want to give them an opportunity to present that to you. It was a challenge to put the budget together. I'm not gonna lie. We're eating into the fund balance a little bit, and that was concerning to me, having not ever presented the budget in that fashion before. So that was a little concerning to me. But it's the situation that we're in right now. So we'll have a deep dive and a long conversation on that on November 1st. So
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is that was something that has been expected for
Correct.
a long time, for many years, since 2016 at least.
I think that was somewhat of the plan. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll be back on November 1st. to talk budget. We have a mayors and commissioners meeting at 8:30 this Thursday. So wanted to ask if there's anything in particular that needs to be on that agenda.
Which was that again?
The mayors and commissioners meeting is this Thursday at 8:30.
I think it makes sense for us to have a conversation with the mayors about this co-responder program task force.
Mhm.
I assume the task force will be reaching out as well, but I think it's reasonable for us to do that. Reminding the mayors of our meeting with the regarding the fire authority negotiations would be helpful. And encouraging them to invite whoever on their teams. One of the things I heard on the fire authority board, because of course we emailed the mayors and encouraged them to invite everyone that they thought was appropriate from their organizations. On the fire authority board, not everybody got that invite. And so a reminder might be helpful. What else?
What about the housing code or multi-jurisdictional housing authority. Have we made any progress on that since a quarter ago and last time we
We could
talked?
probably do an
Years
IHOP
ago?
update. Yeah, we could do an IHOP update.
That'd be great. They're probably more in the loop than, I mean, they're probably, it could be an
Yeah.
update for us as well.
Yeah, somewhat. Yeah. Well, let me know if there's anything else that comes to mind. We'll get something sent out as a reminder to everyone.
Yep.
And then the only other thing I have is that I'm gonna be out again just this weekend. I'm leaving late Friday to go to an 85th birthday party of my father-in-law down in Scottsdale. So I'll be out of county, out of state over the weekend, but back in the office on Monday. So
And I'm getting out again in November, to see some long lost relatives and friends over and out on the East Coast, Southeast this time. And, but I'm scheduling it between our regular meetings in November so as not to miss them. And there are a couple of critical meetings that'll take place while I'm gone, but I can Zoom those meetings. So some extracurricular meetings. So I'll stay up with all that stuff, but I'll be in North Carolina down to Florida from November 2nd through the 12th.
Where in North Carolina?
I'm flying into Charlotte and my sister lives in Waxhaw, almost on the South Carolina border, down that little corner, about the
Inland, though.
mid-state. Yeah, inland, right. Yeah, I mean, I think grocery shop in South Carolina, it's like they're right on the state line, so.
That's cool. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have any fun stuff in my calendar for the rest of the year. Oh. They fix that. Anything else, Brian?
no, all good.
All right, well, I guess, are the candidates coming in or are they zooming?
I think maybe all zooming, but I wasn't sure, so I thought I'd.
Okay. Take a brief recess until 9, since we don't want to surprise them with an early start. We'll come back at 9 for the interview for the vacancy for the Clear Creek. Start with Mr. Sellers and then move on to Mr. Blado. All right, so we're back here at 9 o'clock. Our first agenda item is interview for the vacancy on the Clear Creek County Tourism Bureau. Mr. Sellers. And my understanding, since you're on the board, is this is essentially talking about another term, right?
Correct.
He's right there.
I saw him recognize some volume.
There we go.
And we certainly have been communicating with you in the past and know who you are, but maybe for anybody else who's watching, just let us know a little bit about what you do at Loveland, what you've done on the board and why you're interested in continuing. And then we might have a few questions for you.
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm having a little trouble with my video, but I'll get it going here in a second. John Sellers, I'm the marketing director at Loveland Ski Area. I've been at Loveland for 19 years. I've been serving on this board for about 15 years. Passionate about marketing, tourism, recreation. Excited about some of the changes in the new direction. As you mentioned, we've met quite a bit recently talking about new goals and initiatives and a new direction for the tourism board. And I feel confident we've got a clear understanding of what is expected of us, and we're charted a path kind of with our strategic plan to help us meet some of the challenges and goals that you guys have presented to us. And yeah, we're looking forward to continuing that work and working with you guys and the members of the community to continue to promote responsible recreation and tourism within Clear Creek County, working hard to identify that ideal guest that has minimal impact on our communities, but positive impact to our economies. And there we go. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay. So you said you've been on the board for 15 years?
I think so, yes.
I'm interested to hear maybe a little bit from your perspective of the kind of the transition of the board and kind of how things have changed and improved over the 15 years that you've been involved.
I think they've improved quite a bit. When I first joined the board, it was just the composition was a little bit different. It wasn't always people involved in tourism or marketing. We didn't have much of a budget, so we had a lot of challenges in acting on a lot of our goals. When I first started, the tourism board was actually a tourism board and a chamber. So we were collecting dues from local businesses, using those to help generate revenue. It was kind of a lot of, we didn't have a big budget, so a lot of our advertising was co-op stuff. So would primarily just include the larger businesses in Clear Creek County, the ones that could afford to participate. So we kind of worked hard to be more inclusive, and obviously lodging taxes have increased significantly in the last 15 years. So that has helped us take on a lot more of that without requiring additional fees or costs from the businesses. We kind of reformed the board about 12 years ago. I think we updated our bylaws and all that kind of stuff. And since then, we've been able to do a lot more in terms of advertising and marketing. As we've talked about in great detail over the last couple months, I think we've helped the county attract more visitors, and now we're at a kind of a tipping point where we've obviously reassessed our goals and strategies. And it's a different challenge for us. It's not just more. It's identifying those high quality visitors, educating people about responsible tourism and recreation, and continuing our work to try to disperse people throughout the community. Continue to use some of the anchors to bring them in, but then make sure that when they're here that they're aware of everything that Clear Creek County has to offer.
Well, thanks, John. I have one more question, but I'll save it and for later. Maybe have George or Randy chime in.
Yeah, I I think I liked what I heard right at the beginning in terms of what the focus is that you see in the more recent shifts of trying to figure out how to be as surgical as possible and get the best benefit out of the kinds of marketing and direction. I noticed the impact of the communities there, and I presume the same is included in impact to the environment as well, trying to figure out how to make the money go where the registers and the economic benefit is for the most part. And really that's, that's kind of been my soapbox for a while, is how to do it in a way that people can enjoy how beautiful the place is and also give us the best bang for the buck. So appreciate that comment. I don't really have, I think, I think Sean's question about that 15-year spectrum of what you can see across the changes is an important one. And what I think mine would be among the things and the directions and the conversations we've had most recently in just the last couple of years of that, how that contrast has affected you and how, what your assessment is of the good and the bad, both positive and negative to it, to those conversations, whether it's about the lodging tax or whether it's about any of the rethinking of, how to market and the interest we've shown in that.
Well, I mean, I think it's the transition makes a lot of sense. The change, I mean, everything is changed drastically in 15 years, and the impacts of the pandemic have affected us greatly. And I think this new direction makes sense. Certainly, we're not alone. The rest of the state and much of the West is dealing with the same thing, albeit at slightly different scales. But it's something that now that we've, I think it was hard initially because it was such a drastic change, but as we've, had the conversations with you and have talked with other groups around the state and seen what other people are doing, and working specifically on our strategic plan has really given us, I think, a lot of insight into where we need to go and what we need to do. Certainly we are looking at, some potential budget adjustments coming up here, depending on how the election goes, and we're in discussions on how to deal with that, and it'll change up our operations a little bit, but we're confident that we'll be able to continue to serve the communities and do all the things that we've been talking about. But I think it's positive, it's necessary. We've got, we've talked about it a lot with you guys and a lot of stakeholders in the community, and like I said, other folks around the state. So we've got a good understanding of what we want to see happen and what our role in that will be moving forward.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. Just as a disclaimer, so you understand, that wasn't a trick question or a test or anything. It was literally because we like to know how, I like to know how we're doing too, and with regard to our interactions in these conversations. And it's a good chance to ask that question. And there's no harm, no foul, no matter what the answer is. So
thanks, Randy.
Thanks for showing up for the interview here, John, and read through your application and appreciate what you wrote in there and that it's consistent with what you said, asking in response to Randy and Sean's questions. And I support this transition that the Tourism Bureau is taking towards how it approaches marketing recreational tourism. Specifically the idea that we should be trying to find the people that want to respect our communities, encourage them to do so while they're here. I like the new sign, live wild, visit responsibly. So in general, I mean, I'm feeling pretty good about the direction. Something that I think is a conversation that's on the horizon that, well, I know I want to be on the horizon, is talking about shifting from a focus on getting people into the woods into a focus on getting people into our downtown areas. I think over the duration of my time in Clear Creek, we've often talked about, people come here to recreate and then they shop, and it's a recreation economy. It's really a service industry economy, right? Because when they shop, they're in the restaurants, they're in gift shops. And so I think we've heard from a number of municipalities, and I agree with them that a focus on those downtown areas might have more bang for the buck. And And I know that, this is a conversation that we've been having, so it's not new to you. I guess what I want to ask is, what are your thoughts about shifting from a focus to getting people into the woods to a focus on making sure people arrive in our downtown areas, and specifically those downtown areas where we think we see that there's more capacity still for folks to show up and have parking, et cetera?
Well, I mean, I don't know that I agree that we focus on recreation. Certainly that's part of what we do. And as I kind of mentioned earlier, using the anchors that we have to try to attract people here. But as things shift and as things change, I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. And we've discussed this previously, is that, really trying to draw people to downtown, whether they're coming strictly to do that or whether they're coming to recreate, making sure that they're aware of the additional opportunities available to them. We did install some signage at, I think, about a dozen trailheads with a QR code and information to get people that might be here recreating, to educate them about additional opportunities while they're here. But yeah, I mean, I agree 100% that, I mean, the way that our performance is measured and what we're expected to do for the communities is to drive economic growth in where the cash registers are. It's great to have people recreating here, but that's not really what our main purpose is. But I think that'll continue to be a part of our marketing. It certainly won't be the focus moving forward. But those people that do come and recreate, certainly not all of them, but many of them do spend money in the communities. And like I said, it's really, and this is something we're working on. We're trying to work with a third party to really identify who the most valuable visitors are. Is it the people that strictly visit the downtown areas? Is it the people that do a little bit of both? So we can utilize that information to better focus our marketing and be surgical, as we've discussed previously. But I think moving forward, everything is going to tie back into getting people towards the cash registers, getting people into spending money, because certainly those are the most valuable visitors for our communities.
Thank you. I appreciate that thoughtful answer. And obviously, as we jump into the conversation about really focusing on our downtown areas, that conversation will raise the specter of, okay, how much and where? Because we have, 4 different municipalities. And, they all, well, with the exception of maybe one, they all want to see, will want to see marketing focused on their area in particular. How will you approach, and we know those conversations will be hard. How will you approach those conversations to help us get to an outcome where folks are heard, folks are happy, they feel they're treated fairly, and we're kind of rowing in the same direction?
Well, we've started having those conversations with the potential changes coming, and how do we do that? How do we balance it? And I think in the past we've been primarily focused on marketing the county as a whole throughout all of our advertising. We mention all the towns, use what we think are the biggest draws to get people here, and then try to educate them about what else is available to them. But we've talked, we're talking about a few different ideas about, maybe it's allocating certain dollar amounts to each of these municipalities and doing campaigns focused on each of the 4, in addition to our sort of countywide advertising and programming that we do, so that we do some stuff specific to Georgetown, Idaho Springs, to Empire, Silver Plume, to let people know that the tricky part for us, and this might be, maybe I think some insight from you guys would be helpful, is just, budgeting for that, and how do we make the allocations fair for each of these municipalities? How do we keep it balanced? Is it, somebody, it all comes down to this communication and staying in tune with what everybody's doing, because maybe instead of a campaign, there's an event that somebody wants to promote, or, something different, but trying to figure out ways that we can work with each of these municipalities individually while also promoting the county as a whole. So I think the tough part is finding that balance. Do we look at, an even split across the board? Do we have to try to prorate it based on lodging tax revenues? Those are, as you alluded to, somewhat difficult conversations. And, we want to make sure that we are fair and balanced. But we recognize the need that there are certainly parts of the county that are underutilized as compared to some that are maybe a little busier than the others. So I think the tough part in that is, and that these are the conversations that we're having internally, is how do we do that? How do we make it fair? How do we keep the stakeholders, the businesses, the communities happy with what we're doing?
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. My last question, you've been on the board for 15 years. Thanks for spending 15 years as a volunteer leading one of these organizations. How do you keep up the energy, the engagement, the interest in, these conversations are kind of cyclical. The one we just had, we were having 10 years ago. How do you keep up your interest?
Well, like I said, I'm passionate about marketing and tourism and recreation. I think, we kind of collectively at Loveland, it's just, not just myself, but my boss, we are dedicated to supporting Clear Creek County. We try to, whether it's the tourism board or things that we do at Loveland, we try to work with local businesses and drive traffic their way. When we get phone calls or email inquiries, we are always directing people east first instead of west to try to get them to explore what Clear Creek has to offer. And over the years, there have certainly been some ups and downs, but honestly, this new direction is sort of been invigorating. It's kind of a new challenge, different take. It's something different. It's a big change in direction for what we're doing. And that has really kind of helped me get excited again about what we're doing. It's not kind of the same old. And, while things are cyclical, things are always changing and developing. And like I said, even just, the growth of our budget over the years, and it has presented us with new opportunities, and that's been exciting to me. But I think currently what's most exciting is just this change of direction. It's a big challenge for us. It's something different, it's something new, and it's something I'm excited to be a part of.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
So a couple of important questions. First off, is this going to be a big snow year?
I hope so. It better be. We're due. So I'll say yes. I'll go on the record and say yes.
All right, good. I appreciate that. And this next question doesn't really have anything to do with your candidacy, but I am just curious, since you've been around for 15 years, what do you think the board is missing? What kind of a background or person do you think would be beneficial when another vacancy shows up other than you two?
It's a good question. I think I like our board now. We've got everybody on it is strong and engaged and passionate about what we're doing. It's certainly smaller than I think what we would all like it to be. And that's been our kind of biggest challenge. I think with the recreation plan that you guys are developing and working on, maybe somebody from that group would be beneficial. But more generally speaking, I think I don't know that I would say that we need any specific perspective. I think we just need a few more engaged, dedicated people wherever they come from. I don't think, we work hard when we have these discussions to make sure that we are considering all the different angles of all the different groups and stakeholders within the community. Of course, we're not going to be 100% on that, but I feel that we do a really good job there. But I think it's just, for us, the challenge is just finding people that are dedicated, interested, and then have the time. And that last one has really been the challenging one. We've talked to a lot of folks that are interested, that want to participate, but when it comes down to it, oftentimes they're business owners, and they're already working tons of hours every week. They don't have time to commit to this group consistently. So I would say more than any specific group, it's just finding somebody that is interested, engaged, and has the time to participate in what we're trying to do. And that's been a challenge for us. And I know you guys, I think the last time we spoke, you mentioned, Sean, that you guys are going to try to find some folks too, to help us out. I'm sure it's a challenge across a lot of the boards that you guys work with. You know, folks are busy, they got work and families to deal with, so it's hard to find that extra time. And, you know, to be totally honest, I mean, I think my tenure on the board is long, and I don't think there's a problem with that. But really what I would like to find is somebody that we can get on this board that's engaged, that can commit to some time, that can take over as being president of the board. I think we're overdue for a shift there. I would certainly like to continue my participation on the board, but I think that, you know, over time, things, you know, things need to change, and there would be a benefit potentially to having, you know, somebody new kind of come in and take over. Not somebody totally brand new, but I mean, I don't have a problem with my tenure on there, but I don't want there to be a perception that I've, you know, have a stranglehold on this position that I'm continued to maintaining. But there just hasn't been, you know, tons of interest. I mean, we've got some people now that have been on the board for a while, so we'll continue to have those discussions. But as new people come aboard, you know, we'll certainly make, you know, my position and any of the, you know, vice president, treasurer, secretary positions open to people that are interested. The hard part has been just getting the people to commit to the board. I mean, in the last 12 years, I think we've had one board member express interest in taking over as the president, but a month later, they weren't in the county. So that's kind of been a challenge for us. But I think, yeah, just finding those interested, passionate individuals will be really helpful for us, because we've got, you know, with these changes, there's a lot of work to be done. The more people we have on board, we can kind of start doing our subcommittees and getting people focused on specific projects and engage that way.
No, I think somewhere a lot of these questions are answered, will be answered. I think we'll come together after the election. I think that's the time that we can start having meaningful conversations with the tourism board and the municipalities, the commercial districts, because then we'll know, then we can have substantive conversations about, you know, we'll know what kind of money can be spent where and for what purposes. So then there'll be a better way to know how to portion that out. Some of those ideas about carving out segments of money for each one of the municipalities for those districts as that focus changes. And then that might also inform and cause other people to be interested in being on the board that can represent those various stakeholding interests as well. I really appreciate the work that everybody on the board's been doing up until now, but it has reflected the focus that the board has had to and the tourism operation to say, let's work on advertising the county at large and the beauty of the county and the resources to bring people here, with the idea that we'll absorb a certain percentage of that into our districts and assume that our commercial districts, and just assuming that's happening. I think having those commercial districts well represented on the board will be could be something that would be very helpful alongside the recreational interests as we go into this sustainable recreation mode and really start thinking about how do we, as our resources begin to reach capacity, how do we balance, you know, delivering what we can and then focusing what hospitality we provided, focusing on bringing those people that have gotten that hospitality down to where they'll spend the money, making sure they're there.
One other question, and so when you give us a 30-minute time block, we'll figure out a way to fill it up.
Yeah.
My question is, you know, you appreciate your long-term service, just like George mentioned. What is it that you hope to accomplish in this next term, if you have one, that's maybe a little bit additional or beyond, you know, the status quo?
Well, I think, you know, a priority like we just talked about is growing the size of the board, attracting new folks, to help us with what we're doing. I think continuing to work on our strategic plan to meet some of these new goals. As we're currently working on our budget to present to you guys for next year. And along with that, we want to set some specific goals that support this new direction. And I want to, really have some kind of tangible results that we can share with you and the communities to show how we've had a positive impact, in attracting guests, but then also mitigating the negative impacts that come along with tourism. I think along with attracting those additional folks, like I said, we've been, if we can get some more volume on our board, then we can kind of start some subcommittees and get a little more focus with what we're doing. If we're able to establish those, I would be extremely proud of that. I think continuing to foster the relationships with these municipalities and key stakeholders, and even if they're not participating on the board, maybe it's participating as an advisory member. These folks could still participate in subcommittees while they wouldn't necessarily be voting on the board. So trying to come up with creative ways to get these folks that are interested, but maybe don't have the time to commit to fully being a board member, still get them involved, so that we, as a group, keep up on everything that they're doing, understand what their goals are, and can help them meet those goals. But I think I mentioned goals and stuff before, but I think it's our strategic plan, really getting that implemented, starting to check the boxes, making sure that we're accomplishing what we are saying we're going to accomplish, and being able to show positive results to the Board of County Commissioners and the residents and the stakeholders and business owners of Clear Creek County.
Awesome. One last question. It might be more for Cass or Alan or whoever. When you are talking to a prospective new board member, somebody you're trying to attract, how do you characterize the time commitments, whether that's on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis? What do you tell them?
Well, typically, we have a monthly meeting that is, typically 2 hours, with some additional time spent on, projects, phone calls, emails, things like that. And Cass might be a better one because she has a lot of these conversations. But that's how collectively we kind of characterize it. We had gotten a little more aggressive and we were trying to get these subcommittees where we were saying, okay, we've got our monthly meeting. At one point we were requiring folks to participate on a subcommittee, which would be, one additional meeting a month for an hour. So it's not, I don't think we're trying to be as accurate as we can with these folks and let them know upfront what they can expect. But we're careful that we're not scaring anybody off with what the time commitments are. We always try to be respectful of everyone's time. It's valuable and we appreciate that they choose to spend that time with us, helping us solve these problems. But we really try to just be straight up with them. And then we've kind of gotten rid of the subcommittee requirement because we are not, because we're a small board now and we need to grow. But we just try to do it accurately. We're not trying to oversell it or undersell it. But that's basically the time commitment is basically a 2-hour meeting once a month. And then, potentially some emails, maybe a few phone calls, but it's, shouldn't be more than 5-6 hours a month.
Okay, thanks.
I know we're right at the end here. You piqued my interest. I appreciate this concept of an advisory role. And it's something I look forward to exploring. We could view it as an opportunity to get voices into your meetings that otherwise wouldn't be eligible to participate on your board.
Right.
Which is one of the things that is challenging, right? That the board can only be managers or owners of the tourism industry. So let's explore that more. Thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah, and furthermore, I like the idea. I've heard in other nonprofits primarily, the advisory board being comprised of younger people, people in their 20s and 30s who are kind of at the front end of their careers as a development effort too, and helping them understand and grow to, be good board members in the future too.
I agree. Yep. I like that idea.
Teenagers.
Yeah,
I'll
exactly.
take high school kids too.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Sean. Alan, you're up next, and I have to commend you on your strategy coming a half hour early so you can hear all the questions. Your mind's been churning over this time period, so good work on your part. Maybe you can just start off and mention about your time on the board, a little bit about yourself, again, for some who may be watching who don't know you,
Yes.
like we do.
And it may be helpful if you could just sit up there.
Come join us.
Yeah, feel
Comfy seats.
feel free to think about all those questions while you're talking.
Nice. Yeah, my name is Alan Blado. I've been on the board, was it 5, 6 years now. I own Liquid Descent Rafting, which I started in 2008. So we just finished our 15th season. I grew up in Colorado, lived many different parts along the up and down the Front Range. I've lived in Clear Creek County a little bit, and then now I live in Summit County. That's me in a nutshell, I guess.
Let me ask you the same question. In your time on the board, how have you seen things change? And maybe I'll add, what do you see in the future?
Yeah.
Your next term?
Well, in my time on the board, I mean, really my time from starting Liquid Descent until now, I've seen the county change dramatically. In 2008, the financial catastrophe was happening, and it seemed like the world was in a, there was a lot of economic hardships, and I felt like I was starting my business kind of at the bottom, which is the best place to do it. So I've seen not only the rafting industry, but tourism in general really have some substantial growth over the last 15 years. And with that, I've seen, the counties in terms of what I've seen on the board. I feel like the overall message that's gotten out there about the county has improved, not only, marketing the outdoor things and the heritage and all that, but just the overall quality of reputation I think we've tried to put out has improved. I think Clear Creek is become a very attractive destination, which it always was, but I just think we've really honed the marketing over the last 5, 6, 8 years, and have done a good job kind of coordinating and putting out into the world, the different reasons to come and visit this fantastic place. So I think it's just more of a, coordinated effort with the board, and a lot of hard work from the volunteers and discussions and, trying to realize what we are. We're not Breckenridge or, Aspen or anything like that. But just really getting the message of the quality that we can offer as a destination.
Coach Randy?
How would you characterize or critique our board and its relationship with the tourism board in the 5, 6 years that you've been on the board?
Well, I think it's, when I first started, we would do our semi-annual meetings, and, you'd ask us all the questions and stuff. I think over the last 5 or 6 years, I've seen more of an involvement with county commissioners, which I welcome. I think, our job is to execute our marketing plan or whatever, not necessarily for us to come up with, we take direction from you, as I guess is what I'm saying. We definitely, consider what you have to say. And I think the board of county commissioners has become a little more vocal as in the past. In 2008, there wasn't a lot of tours. I mean, I think I can speak to rafting in general. I think in 2008, it's about like a third of what it is now, even a quarter. So as more and more people have come to the county, well, that, more issues have arisen, which is, I think required more input as far as what our direction should be. And, which puts us or has brought us to where we are, this kind of shift in focus of bringing more and more people to the county to like, okay, let's consider kind of what all the consequences of all these people are. And maybe we shift our focus like we're doing and searching for more quality over quantity, we could have someone, you have your family from Denver that loads up the side-by-side on their trailer. They come up here, they take a parking spot, they go up on the trail and obviously their actions have impact, no matter how careful they are. Put it back on the trailer, drive back down to Denver. They don't, get dinner, they don't stay the night, that's where we're trying to find, like you said, the most valuable tourists in relation to their benefit to the community. They're going to come up, they're going to shop, buy some clothes, eat some dinner, stay the night, check out one or two municipalities. I mean, that's really what we're searching for.
I think, and just a thought about, and your perception comes out of how you've seen the growth in the rafting industry. And of course, rafting wasn't a thing here until not too many years before 2008 when you started yours. I mean, I remember it used to be a few people jumping in tubes here and everybody said, you can't raft Clear Creek, it's too small. And then it's too bony and too dangerous in places. And then people found out they could until it became the second most rafted river in Colorado over a period of only about 20 years or something like that. So you've kind of been, I can see where your perception of that is really then formed in large part by being part of something that was just starting and taking off. It had only begun about 10 years before that in earnest here.
Yeah, well, I think, John Rice from Clear Creek Rafting, he was, I think, one of the first, if not the first, and that must have been in the 90s. But I think I think the big wave, I kind of just got lucky and kind of caught that with timing. It was the bottom of the economy. I think the legalization of marijuana helped with tourism, maybe a lot more than people have realized or think. And so, yeah, the rafting industry had some growth for a number of years, but then really starting in 2008, you started to see this huge kind of growth.
You mentioned the other rafting shops. Do you make any effort to kind of represent them? And
I do, but I have to be careful, I don't want to be like, say we do a lot of things in the board. So sometimes we're talking about this ad or this page ad and this and that. And I don't want to be like, hey, why don't you put this picture of Liquid Descent, up there? So I don't want to have cause a perception that I'm just trying to market my business. So yes, I'm very particular and cautious that, or conscious, I should say, of marketing the industry as a whole. Because it is, a great draw. And you're right, Clear Creek, for whatever reason, for many years wasn't recognized as, a top Colorado rafting destination, but it is world-class. I mean, Clear Creek is steep and fun, beautiful, and, it's great. And
so close to Denver too.
And it's so close to Denver. And, just the access to the creek with, every raft drainage is different, whether, where the company's located, like in Fort Collins, they got to drive 45 minutes from this city to get up to the Poudre. And everything is just perfect on Clear Creek for, recreation. It's awesome.
Well, I have the same question that I had for John, for you. We're talking about shifting a focus to getting people, I'm going to rephrase it a little bit, because there are businesses that are not in our downtown areas that, we should be trying to get people to. Yours is not in the downtown area. So what are your thoughts about shifting from a focus on getting people just into the woods on their own, into the trailheads, et cetera, towards getting people into our businesses and our downtown areas?
Yeah, I agree. I think, it's all about the benefit to the local community. If you have, if you live and work in a tourist destination, you've got to see some benefits from those tourists. So I agree. I think we've got to figure out how to best get the tourists to the cash register so we can see that economic benefit. In regards to the different municipalities, as we've talked about, our goal in the past has always been to market the county at large and not show any favoritism towards any of the municipalities. I think going forward, it's like John said, it's about having these difficult conversations and figuring out the best way to do it. And I think the best way to do it is to have these conversations, to have the open communication. You asked John about like, what would he want to accomplish going forward? I think for me, it would to be have a more cohesive kind of environment going forward with a lot more input from the municipalities. If certain municipalities don't feel like their voice is being heard, then let's have these conversations. Let's have this input and figure out the best way to do that. Whether it is carving up money specifically for each municipality, or maybe we set aside a bunch of money for events and then it's municipalities kind of the onus on them to figure out what they want to market in the different areas. But I think we obviously how we meet with you all and we get direction from you. Maybe it's not a bad idea to meet with municipality leaders as well to hear what they have to say. So I think it's all about communication and dialogue with the interested parties to see how best we can get the people out of the woods and into the different municipalities. There's 6th Street on Georgetown obviously is a place that could see some growth and it has a lot to offer. But there's also places in Empire that we, talk to them and see what we could do to get people there as well. But I think it's all about communication.
Yeah, I think, go ahead.
A question for Peter. I know that there's specific language in the statute around who should or can serve on the board.
Correct.
Is it possible for somebody like an assistant city manager to serve on the board, or would they be, I'm not saying that they should, but I'm just asking if that's even.
The statute requires that they have marketing or tourism, that they're in the marketing or tourism industry at the time. So an assistant city manager wouldn't be able to just do that unless they had some connection to that.
But a person who runs, a person who has a brewery or a clothing store or a coffee shop. I mean, to be quite honest, anybody who has any businesses,
hotel.
anything like that in Clear Creek County is in the tourism industry.
Oh, for sure. And we would welcome. Yeah.
So,
So, and we've had restaurant owners in the past and lodging people as well. And would love to have more of them.
And so my point is, and I think George did well to reword it slightly when he said, to our businesses and our downtowns. And that's because, well, primarily wherever the businesses are is where we need to have, and clearly the bulk of those are in the towns and in those downtown areas, but not all.
Yeah.
We wanted to benefit the economy at large. So having those people who can represent those areas to be able to be either in advisory capacity or as actual board members, I think to have that in there, to have that mix of both the recreation managers as well as those others to try to make sure that there's that focus on getting them there is.
Yes, really more healthier marketplace of ideas.
I think Randy's spot on. The idea that we can, and John had it right. The idea that we can add advisory roles to this board can help us have that diversity and voices that we think we're looking for to take the next step. But we're not here to debate that. We're here to ask you about why you're here. So I guess, I'll ask the same question. You haven't been here for 15 years, but you've been here for a while. What keeps you excited about having the conversation about tourism marketing in Clear Creek County?
Well, obviously I'm invested in the county. I've my livelihood depends on tourists in the county. So that's a big reason why I have a lot on the line. But I also, I grew up in Colorado. I have a lot of pride and love for the state. I am very thankful to the county for all the opportunities it has given me. So I want to be involved. I see the problems that have arisen over the huge explosion of tourism. And as a business owner, I see them, I'm transitioning myself to a little bit about, okay, maybe I don't want to take everybody rafting. Maybe we there is a shift towards more of quality customer in my world as well. I care about the county. I care about the heritage and preserving the beautiful recreation we have here. So, whatever way I can do that or help do that, I'm up for. So it keeps me motivated to stay involved. And, I'm excited, as John said as well, and undertaking this transition from more of a tourism management perspective than just, trying to get as many people here as we can. And I'm excited at the challenge and motivated to help try and do some good.
I don't have any more questions. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't, it's the chair's job to.
Yeah, I'll ask the same question I asked at the end for John. What do you think the board's missing? What do you think that would be really beneficial to add?
If you look at the board right now and we need more perspectives, more input. I'm in the rafting business. Nicole's kind of, she does her marketing. She has her marketing business. There's John, obviously, with Loveland. Cameron's with the recreation. We have a good kind of balance there. Each of us kind of have our own perspectives and agendas. But just looking at industries, it'd be nice to have a restaurant representative. It'd be nice to have someone from lodging. It'd be nice to have someone from retail, just to look, those actual businesses. But I would echo what John said, just trying to find motivated people is the most important factor. Motivated people who care and are smart, people. Any more, another perspective, another point of view is always going to, I think, help us, empathize with other points of view around the county and try and help, do the best job we can. So, I would just creative, smart people who care would be very welcome here, because we have a great board, but we could, we could use some more seats, some more people to fill these seats.
Yeah, and maybe this is a question for Cass or Peter. I know that the bylaws have a range that's specified. What is the upper limit of the range and where are you guys right now?
So we can have up to 9 on the board, and a comfortable level we like is 7. And right now we're at 4.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
we'd like to have 3 more chairs for sure. And then, and I've been talking to Georgetown Promotions and the Historical Society in Idaho Springs, and I think I might have 2 candidates to bring to you. So those conversations are going on right now. So I'm hopeful of that. And just to kind of echo, we would really like to have a lodging person. I'm not sure who that would be. If you have any ideas, that would be great. I think that's paramount, especially since we are the Citizens Lodging Tax Panel. I think it's very important that we have a lodging representative, just to echo that.
Yeah, in the past, I've spoken to the owners of the Microtel, and I think Amit has experience with tourism in some resort town down in Florida too. So I'd be happy to. Yeah, I've talked to a number of different people, but people are busy and this
That's
is
the thing,
volunteer
yeah.
gig and
And Brittany's very creative, so I've been begging for her too.
yeah.
So
One mention like youth, I think that would be cool. If we could find, young, new business, someone who really has a lot to gain and has a lot of energy, that would be cool. Because it is tough with established business people. They are really busy and, families or the whole catastrophe.
Yeah, I think a lot of boards are kind of transitioning from, this is not a typical board. Many boards have a lot of retired people and oftentimes it's a highlight to go to the board. So the board meetings end up being 3 or 4 hours. And younger people are like,
Yeah.
yeah, so I don't think you guys have that challenge, which is good.
That's why you have to lie to them when they're younger. That's how I ended up on city council. I said, so how much of an involvement is this? He said, it's only 1 meeting a month for a couple of hours. It turned out that was for the first week.
The person who tried to get me involved in this office lied to me about that, actually. I did some research and found that wasn't true. Anything else you want to add? Okay, well, again, thank you so much for your interest. And normally we will get back to you within, I don't know, a meeting or two.
Cool.
Now, and yeah, again, really appreciate your time, your volunteerism. Thanks.
Yeah, I know we have a budget meeting, the first meeting in November, but maybe at a second meeting in November, we can have this stuff come back. So it seems,
And we did. Yeah, and that'll be the most, that'll be also a time that's more informed by the results of the election too.
I think that really matters for this particular.
yeah. I mean, you're referring probably to one A and whether one A passes and all of that, right?
Right, yeah.
All right, so our next item is a consent agenda. We have a few minutes, so we'll take a brief recess and come back at 10. break, banter. Good, okay. We are back from our brief recess. Our next action session is the 10 a.m. consent agenda. Are we good with both items this week? Anybody want to discuss the warrant register or the renewal of the ambulance license? I'll mention really quickly is there's a effort undergoing based on some legislation that passed to standardize the ambulance licensing. So this is going to look a little bit different
Oh,
in the
yeah.
future.
Yeah.
But for now, we're still doing it locally. And this one, we have 2 ambulance districts here in the county. This one is for Evergreen Fire Rescue.
And that bill did pass, and it's just a matter of, it hasn't gone into effect yet. Is that correct?
That's right. I don't think it goes into effect till 2024. But I'm on 2 different work groups. One of them is related to EMS sustainability, which I think was in the same bill, and the other one is related to the ambulance licensing.
Right.
One was through CCI, one was through Semtech. But anyway, item number 1, consideration approval of the warrant register. Number 2, consideration approval of renewal of ambulance license for Evergreen Fire Protection District.
Will we approve the consent agenda as read?
Second.
Have a motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. On to the 10:05 work session to discuss the 4-day work week for county offices. Brian.
Thank you. So I think as the 3 of you know, the county organization's been discussing the possibility of moving to a 4-day work week for probably the last couple of years. I know the leadership team has discussed it extensively. The topic itself actually predates my start with the county over 1.5 years ago. So we've been talking about it for quite some time. We did survey the organization, our employee base, and probably not surprisingly, 86% of our employees were in favor of a move to a 4-day work week.
Who are the 6 people who want to work more?
Exactly. And after lots of discussion and review, today's item is a recommendation to implement a 4-day work week trial period. I've discussed this topic with each of you several times in our one-on-one meetings, and one of the items we discussed individually was, how do we involve the public in this? Right? How do we inform the public? How do we involve them in this decision? And the 3 of you really didn't have a strong preference or a strong consent. There definitely wasn't a strong consensus either way. And it's why we, in the end, chose to recommend a trial period that would give us an opportunity near the end of the trial period to do some kind of survey work with the community forum to speak with our residents, with our community, to determine how the trial period went. And I want to be clear, we're doing this to be more competitive, to be a more attractive workplace. We're not suggesting to you that we're going to save any kind of budget dollars by going to a 4-day work week. It's about being competitive, being a more attractive workplace. I think all 3 of you are familiar with the struggles we're having in filling a lot of the key positions throughout the organization. So we do hope that this will help with our ability to attract talent to the organization also. So we're recommending that a trial period begin the first week in January and run through May 12th. So the first Friday closure in that scenario would be on January 6th. That'd be the first Friday that we would not be open for operations. The county courthouse would be open Monday through Thursday, 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., which provides an additional open hour on each end of that work day, in addition to what we have today. So should the board support this change, we would, this change in our open business hours, we would immediately begin publicizing and getting out to the community this change in operations. We'd be using facility signage, all the social media that's out there, that's available to us, our website, email blast to our boards and commissions, to all the municipalities. Suggest we add it to our Thursday meeting, mayors and commissioners agenda meeting if it's something you support. So we need to reach out to all of our stakeholders. Department communications with their individual customers, those one-on-one interactions that happen right now at our counters. We've got a county newsletter we'd added to the video board outside this lobby. As much as possible, we were trying to reach as much of the community as possible, and I'll take advantage of all avenues that are out there to advertise this change if it's a place we're going to go. So in order for this to be successful, though, obviously it has to work for our customers. It's gotta work for our customers and the people we're providing services to every day, in addition to our employees, right? So county residents and customer feedback will be solicited via the community forum and other face-to-face interactions. So at some point later in the tri-period period, we'd start using the community forum to solicit input from our residents, from our community, to find out their thoughts on the business hour change. Near the end, we would also suggest, we would probably resurvey all our employees to find out from their perspective how the change in operations is going, how is it impacting their ability to get their work done in 4 days as opposed to 5. Finally, should the board support this change, we would be coming back to you at your December 6th meeting with a resolution that would set the new business hours for the county. So just to kind of reiterate the timeline here, again, if the board suggests today that you're supportive of this trial period, we would begin publicizing immediately this change in operations in our business hours. We would bring back a resolution to you on December 6th, asking you to adopt a resolution that would set the new business hours. So the trial period again would be January 2nd through May 12th, with that first closure being on January 6th. And we would target the May 2nd regular meeting of the board to come back to you to update you on, from our perspective, how did things go? How do they go from the internal survey? How do they go from the input we're getting from the community on the community forum, et cetera? And again, that would be the May 2nd date. So I'll stop there and take any questions you might have.
I guess my first question is, what have we learned? We won't be the first community to do this, the first
No.
county to do this.
Yeah.
We're in some ways being pressured by the competitive landscape where other counties are already offering this.
Yeah.
What have they learned in terms of the pros and cons
Right.
and how to manage this process?
Most organizations are seeing productivity go up. They're seeing productivity go up. They're seeing employee well-being be better because they've got that extra day on that weekend to go see the doctor, to go to the dentist on a Friday, or to go get groceries on a Friday, as opposed to taking up your weekend days, right? So you've got that extra day in your life to be able to get more things done. And so they're seeing employees get more of their work done during that extended period of work hours, so they can take advantage of that off day. And I think that other aspect of being able to get some things done on a Friday that when you're working a 9 to 5, an 8 to 5 job, Monday through Friday, you just can't get those things done unless you're going to take some actual time off of work to be able to do that. So
But in general, they've been able to discern, if anything, more on average, I would guess, an increase in productivity. Obviously, the character of the worker always plays into whether
Sure.
you're gonna, they're gonna take advantage of it or not. But most people, especially if they appreciate where they're working,
Yeah.
gonna be wanting to,
Yeah.
to make sure they get their work done.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard some internal concerns about what happens on that Friday. Our facility staff, how do we revisit how we're doing certain things, with respect to the fact that this building will be open. The other end of the building will be open, right? Because the state will still have their offices down at the other end. So, but it's a trial period. We'll have to assess how it goes and come back to you and let you know if it's something we should continue or not.
I think the oil and gas industry was probably a early adopter of every other Friday off during the summer type of a thing. And so I think a lot of the public, or some of the public, already has that. And so Friday's their day to get stuff done, and they want to come up here and get stuff done, and we're closed too. Have there been any efforts to offer like some limited Friday, like once a month or something like that? Or was there ever any discussion about never having another Monday?
We talked, well, part of our survey asked employees, would they prefer a Monday or a Friday off? And I think it was pretty overwhelming on a Friday.
Yeah.
I think another thing we discussed was, can we be open 5 days a week? Can we still be open 5 days a week, yet allow employees to work at 4 10s? And we came to the conclusion that we don't have enough staff to do that. And we're not a big enough organization to be able to, staff 5 days.
Yeah, if you've already pared things down, to where you can think of yourself almost not as a skeleton crew already, how do you do that? It wouldn't make sense. It's like you'd be trying to be open 50 hours a week instead of 40 to begin with.
So we're
So
a small enough organization, it'll be tough.
Yeah, I have one other related question. I'll let Randy and George chime in. I know that things changed profoundly during the pandemic, and we created the ability for people to work off-site. What does it look like now? Are there people who are still working off-site or working off-site some of the time? Is it on sort of a employee by employee basis, or maybe more at the department level? Because some departments like clerk and recorder have a client-facing role, and working at home is not really a viable
Right.
option.
I think we still have folks that are spending a couple days a week working from home in those areas where they're not forward facing to the community.
Do we have any efforts to, you mentioned productivity, and there's a lot of different ways to imagine you're being more or less productive. Have we thought about how we might actually during this trial period try to quantify how that's looking?
Specifically, no, but we need to.
Okay,
We have to, right? We have to create some kind of measures that will help us say that, this has been successful for the following reasons. So we can come back and tell you that.
yeah,
As
Well,
opposed to something that's anecdotal, right? It's more based in fact and data as opposed to, yeah. So we have to develop those measures.
yeah. One of the things I've done in my business is use a platform called Active Track just to hold myself more accountable. And it essentially measures everything that happens here and gives me a readout in terms of whether I'm being productive or not.
I know there are some cities and counties that implemented those kinds of things during the pandemic. It's a little, from some people's perspective, it's a little big brotherish, right? Because whenever they're on that device, but at the same time, it's
Yeah, I think if you aggregate it correctly and view it as I think it's a way to view it in a positive light too. I don't think it necessarily has to be something that's negative.
yeah.
I know Teams does that. They do a way to that you can like track if somebody's online or like in a meeting and stuff like that. Microsoft Teams does, but
I get emails from our service, from our office service, Microsoft Viva or something is
Oh,
the
yeah.
service.
Yeah.
Tells me who I'm talking to, how many emails I've sent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Office 365, yeah.
It only captures a small piece of the work, but anyway. I have a couple questions and thoughts here. First off, this will affect hours at the wellness center as well? Or will the wellness center staff try to be open 5 days a week still?
I don't know if we really specifically talked about that.
That's a pretty important.
Probably doesn't affect Centura, right?
It doesn't affect Centura for sure. Yeah.
I'm
I have not really talked about that.
What I'm thinking, yeah, that's a really important question, George, because one of the things that one of the problems we were trying to solve with doing a collaborative care clinic was to be able to have some, more of a be here now availability for things that may not be a crisis in a technical sense, but are a crisis to a person in their life, and we had a lack of medical facility at large. And on top of that, then we were trying to increase the ability of people to get what they need when they show up. That's an important consideration, I think. The idea that we would be 4 days a week available for those services is, it's kind of like law enforcement or something like that, or fire. It's like they've still got to be there. Those are going to run.
I have to say with that, did not specifically come up in our conversation. So I'll have to.
And then another counter thing to that, that's in addition to it that popped into my head was, and I'm sorry, George, maybe I cut you off where you asked your second thing you were going to say.
No, this is, we can stay on this topic and go ahead.
Well, goes to another topic, so I'll stop right there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I thought about public health nurses and the link between, wanting to have a public health nurse available while Centura is open. The idea being that if for whatever reason somebody shows up and has something, maybe they need family planning services that Centura doesn't offer, or maybe it's that they found out that their insurance is lapsed and they can't pay, that they get up and can talk to a public health nurse about those gaps in services that Centura is offering or inability to pay. So that's something that I am curious to see. I think I have a preference that we try to figure out how to have a public health nurse available while they're open. I don't know. I don't intend to communicate that as a mandate because I know it's a complicated problem to solve. And we absolutely have to, as employers that want to attract talent, and the community expects that of us. I mean, we have to figure out how to make this transition. I think that's one area where we do see some, a real reduction in service because our partner Centura being there. I think about the benefits management section of our Department of Human Services that's down there. Maybe that one's a little bit less important to have on a Friday. But I think both of those functions are worthy of special consideration. And that's as far as the health and wellness center, that's kind of my questions and thoughts around that. So Randy, I can defer to you with the comment that you were.
I think to continue on that same subject for a little bit, recognizing that certainly we value our public health staff as much as any other employee. They've done, we've described them as heroes through the pandemic and stuff, and the work that they did. So we certainly don't want to not let them be able in some way to take advantage of this shift if we can make it happen. It may have to do with how we budget and how we, to be able to have somebody there and still allow 4-day work weeks. It's that skeleton crew problem that you start needing more help to be able to get the job done. And so if there's a way that can be done, I'd certainly be supportive of particularly the first of those two functions. The other thing that I've thought of that is a positive to the 4-day work week is the fact that so many schools are looking at going to 4-day work weeks. And so it offers families the flexibility to be able to, and a lot of our employees come from places that aren't even in our own school system. So as schools go to 4-day school weeks, then, it kind of lets the work week sync with the school week a little better for parents.
The other comment I have is you probably discussed at length the window that you would remain open, 7:30 to 5:30. In terms of looking at it through a lens of what's best to provide the best customer service, I think it's likely that shifting that a half hour is going to do a better job for us. We hear from folks that live on the East End from a lot that say they've got to figure out how to get off of work in Denver at 5 and get up here. And that's a challenge. And if we were open until 6, that would be a much easier task to accomplish. So I have the opinion that if we shift that a half hour, we'll do better by our customers.
Yeah, I think so too, because what you've got is a sliver of time on either end of the day of other people's typical work day. And if, like you said, if they've got to get from work in Denver into home into here or something like that, then by shifting it down where we've got a longer stretch at either the beginning or end of the day, it does make sense from being able to allow that, solve that problem.
And we're talking about 3 offices who are their own elected officials and can set their own schedules. And so I'm sure this is a culmination of a conversation where they all agree to that.
Mhm.
I don't get to tell them what to do, but I do want to express my opinion that from a perspective of customer service, I think we will do better if we open at 8 and close at 6 rather than 7:30 to 5:30.
I'll say 2 things to that. One of them is my own personal experiences. It's pretty rare that I actually need to be here. I think most of the services that are relevant to me are available online and much more convenient. And I think you pay a $1 service fee, for example, to do something with the clerk and recorder's office, and in exchange for your dollar, you save an hour and a half of your life of having to, and all your car expenses of having to drive back and forth. The other thing I wonder is, and again, it's a good point. These are other elected officials who can set their own policy, but maybe it's not the sort of thing that you would need to drag the entire county a half an hour. Maybe they could offer an extended evening, and it might even be a little bit more, right? It might even be a 10 to 7, or I don't know, some other number that would be even more accommodating.
Yeah, it's better for them because Road and Bridge, for example, it's not a thing.
Or
The
EMS,
recorder might
or the
be,
sheriff.
so.
I mean, our intention is to somehow survey whether that 7:30 to
Mhm.
5:30 is working or not, right? And to determine what is the best block of time that we need to be open. So
So you're saying the trial,
definitely something we're going to assess during the trial period for sure, to make sure what we put in place is actually working for our customers. Yeah.
Yeah, one other thing I would
To
note,
George's point, I mean.
yeah, and it's kind of the same with everything that we personally hear from the public. Oftentimes, there's a fairly thin minority who's very vocal once policy change affected. And then there's the other huge majority who's fine with the way things are. And I think you have to, strike an appropriate balance.
One of the just gems of wisdom out of the service industry is that if a customer of yours has something to say, you can count that there's 9 other people that just aren't coming back because they're not taking the time. Obviously we're in a different situation. But I do think when people make comments about your schedule and stuff, it's important to realize that it's rare for someone to take the time to make that comment. A lot of other people are just not and just share the opinion.
I think that's fair. I mean, I'm thinking of, there was a person in my neighborhood who was pounding on the table for a clerk and recorder's office in Brookvale, something that's like well beyond the pale.
Yeah. The other comment that I have on this, and thanks for putting all the thought in, and I support this change. Do what you can with the comments I made, and if either before rollout or as we adjust this. The last thing I want to talk about is the outreach plan. I think it's really important that folks not be surprised by this. And I think we should do, I think everyone should receive a mail piece. I think we should do an every door direct mail with a postcard saying, this is what's going on. This is the new schedule. Here's where you can give us feedback.
I think it's a good idea.
I think it's worth the money.
Not much, it's not very much money.
To announce the trial period, yeah.
I think it's a good idea.
And possibly even another one afterwards to solicit their reactions.
Yeah. I don't know that you can, capturing people's attention can be hard. I also just would observe that a lot of mail volume right now, so it might be best to send that piece later in November.
A lot of interesting things in my mailbox these days.
Yeah. Yeah. Piles up fast these last few weeks.
Yeah, so alarming images.
Between Eileen commented on that, between all the holiday gift stuff coming, and the election stuff, it's like that when you get to the post office.
Thank God there's a trash can in the post office.
Yeah, I know.
That's where mine's going.
Okay, I support it as well, and I really think it's a thoughtful approach to to frame it around a trial period so that we're not making a permanent decision without being fully informed. And I think the trial period will really give us the information that we need to get this right.
Thank you.
We will bring a resolution for you to approve as to the hours, at a future date.
Okay.
And that'll be
December
December
6th.
Anything else? We good?
All good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's just do the next item, then we'll have a little bit of time. There's a item here regarding a letter of support. I support it. I don't know how you feel about it, Randy or George.
I support.
Yeah, I support it. Just a little bit of background. This is coming from Evergreen Fire Protection. It came up at the Emerge meeting. Her name is Jessica Moore, right?
I'm pretty sure.
Decided last minute that they have the capacity to apply for another mitigation grant in that area, which is awesome. And this letter is just supporting that application. I support it as well.
I don't think we need, it's not an action item, right? We can just
No,
give
just direction to staff to complete the letter and get it sent out to you.
Okay,
It's like we
All
have
right.
half an hour.
yeah, we do want to take a crack at the executive session?
Yeah.
Let's do it. So I move the board, move to executive session to discuss the following matters.
Pursuant to CRS 246424B for the county attorney to conference with the Board of County Commissioners for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions concerning the role and authority of the county's open space commission. That's it.
Second.
Have a motion, a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. The board will now move into executive session. No written minutes will be kept. No decisions will be made. Our next agenda item is at not until 1 o'clock.
11.
No,
Oh,
11.
wait a minute.
The interview.
Oh, I stand corrected at 11 o'clock, and we will we will be back in time for that interview.
And then we may have another executive session to follow. Wrap up.